If this video gets any attention, in order to follow along, you and I need to agree on a few things. Number one, we have to agree that Battlefield 6 is a decent game. Not a great game, not even specifically a good game, but a game that works, a game that is entertaining, and a game that is not dead. This game still gets tens of thousands of players every day. That is not a dead game. Number two, we need to agree that Battlefield 6 is a live service game. This game gets free content drops with premium skin drops on a consistent cadence. And finally, we need to agree that Battlefield 6 is not providing a good live service. This video isn't even about Battlefield 6 specifically. It's just the most topical example that I can use, and the example that I know the most about, to describe what I'm actually going to be talking about in this video. First-person shooter games that became popular in the late 2000s to early 2010s in live service mixed like oil and water. And yet every studio seemingly wants to make their legacy shooter games a live service. This almost never works because these games do not work as live services. They could if quantity was a priority over quality, but only one or the other can exist unless publishers decide to participate in human rights violations. You can't have your cake and eat it too without raising some eyebrows. Let's take a look at Genshin Impact. This is a game that has been going strong for more than a decade. Yes, it actually is that old, and it still generates millions in revenue. Now, one could say that there is a very obvious reason for this, but that's only part of it. There's many different games. Hell, there's games that are better than Genshin Impact and way more appealing if you catch my drift. But the reality is that Genshin Impact is always changing and growing every single week. There's always a new area to explore, there's always new characters to meet, there's new metas, new grinds, and all of these things show up on a silver platter almost every week or every other week. And that's because, well, if you don't know a lot about work culture in Asian countries, it's practically mandatory that this is the case. Your individual needs as a developer are only obstacles getting in the way of a new content drop, and if you don't have the stamina for it, look for a different job. This is not the case in most other regions, which is why it usually never works. Live service only works if it's live. Destiny worked because it felt live. Maybe that's not the case these days, but when it was, man, did it work. The rest of the gaming landscape didn't really pay attention to Destiny, but those who did were glued to it because there was always something to do. Even if that thing to do was the thing that you did last week, except the rewards and enemies are slightly different, Battlefield 6 does not change from a week-to-week basis. The game mostly stays static until a new season drops. And even then, the break in static is pretty brief, because one map shows up and then, well, you get the next one a month later. But here's the thing. The answer is not more content more often. In fact, the answer is actually to stop this entire mechanism entirely. Maybe nobody else really caught on to this except a few, but all of you have been duped. You have been duped into accepting less content for more money, and you've been misled into believing that you got a better deal than you did 10 years ago. Map packs are the actual better way to go. I'm not joking. Maps are actual, tangible pieces of content that you can interact with once it becomes available. Battle passes are not content because these are time limited. If you are not playing the game while these cosmetics are available to earn, you do not get to interact with them. I will say it one more time. Battle passes are not content, and yet you have to pay for them. But everyone gets access to the new maps this way. Well, sure, but consider this. What is preventing DICE and EA from allowing players who own the map packs to invite non-owners of the map packs to play the new maps? I mean, isn't that the best kind of free advertising you can ask for? A non-owner of the map pack cannot queue the new maps themselves, but if they have a friend who owns the map pack, they could invite the non-owner to their party and show them the new maps. So if the non-owner really likes the new maps, they would be swayed to pay for the map packs themselves. Then you don't have to consider cosmetics to fund the game, because then people are actually paying for content as opposed to limited time trinkets that don't impact gameplay, which means that EA still has a sustainable revenue source, and that also means that more players will play the new maps, therefore bypassing the split of the player base. Everybody can access the new maps, but if you don't own the privilege to the maps, you just can't queue it by yourself. Map packs were sustainable in the past. That's why it did it. So what's the problem now? You could even have free weekends or free events where the new maps are available to all, so the maps can still be appreciated by the rest of the player base. This feels way more fresh than just one new map every month, if that's even feasible. The biggest problem that people have is that the game is pretty good. They just wish there was more in it. And at this point, I think there is a growing list of people who are willing to wait a little bit for new content if it means that they can have a huge dump of it every once in a while. The problem is not Battlefield 6, it's the delivery of how the game gets bigger over time. If a feature of a game is only tolerated by the player base, it may as well be removed. Have you ever heard anybody say in a genuinely excited tone, "Man, I cannot wait to grind the Battle Pass for Battlefield 6"? Of course you haven't, because people are not excited about Battle Passes. They tolerate them. So, the best way to go about it is to remove the Battle Pass mechanism entirely, because at best, it's mildly amusing to interact with, and at worst, downright miserable to interact with. Listen, you can listen to Enders piss and moan about the movement all day. By the way, the movement literally feels the exact same except 10% less. Here's my tracker.gg stats, now leave me alone. But the underlying issue isn't the game itself. People want to play Battlefield 6, but the live service detracts from Battlefield 6. It does not enrich the game. It's like a flower trying to grow underneath concrete. It just won't pop out, and if it does, who's waiting around for it to do so? Whenever the next Battlefield comes out, as a matter of fact, whenever any new shooter comes out, come out in droves and demand no more live service. Live service only works if human comfort is sacrificed. It is not sustainable for both players and developers. I want more content. I do not want more content at the expense of actual human lives. This game is not important enough for me to demand that, and it shouldn't be for anyone else either. If you made it this far, I don't know if I'm going to make Battlefield 6 content. I don't want to constantly make the same video over and over, so if you appreciated what I had to say and want to expand my thoughts, let me know in the comments below. Have a good one.